Hi everyone! Today we're going to be making this very simple crochet wine tote. And for this wine tote, I am working with some size 4 medium weight yarn. And this is the Re-Up Recycled Cotton and Polyester Blend Yarn by Lion Brand Yarns. And I am using this entire skein for a little gift set. So if you're interested in the other patterns in that gift set, check the links in the description. I'm also going to be using a size G or 6 or 4¼ millimeter crochet hook. And I do recommend grabbing a scrap piece of yarn, a stitch marker, or a safety pin for this. And you will need 2 of my crochet handles for this, so I will link to the tutorial for these in the description. And we're going to begin with a magic circle. So take your tail and drape it over your working yarn and pinch that intersection. Then we want to yarn over and pull through our loop and separate our loop out like this. From here we're going to chain 1, and then we want to place 11 double crochets inside of our magic circle. And once you have your 11 double crochets, go ahead and pull on your tail to tighten the gap in your magic circle. And for our next row, we're going to skip our little chain 1 and dive right into the top of our first double crochet. And we're going to place 2 double crochets here. And I do recommend crocheting over your tail in this next row if you would like to, by just lining it up with your stitches. Once you have your 2 double crochets in place, we're going to mark the first of those 2 with our stitch marker. And from here, we're just going to place 2 double crochets in each stitch in our row until we make it back to our stitch marker. And when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 22 stitches. And when you make it to the end of your row, you can remove your stitch marker. The pattern for our next row is to place 1 double crochet in our next stitch and then 2 double crochets in the stitch after that. And we're just going to alternate between 1 and 2 double crochets going around our row until we make it to our last stitch. And don't forget to mark that first stitch. And when you get near the end of your row in the stitch before your stitch marker, rather than placing 2 double crochets, I want you to just place 1 double crochet. So you should have a total of 32 double crochets. From here you can remove your stitch marker. And the pattern for our next row is to skip our next 4 stitches. And we want to work in the gap between our 4th and our 5th double crochets right here. So not the top of our stitch, but instead between our stitches. And we're going to place 4 double crochets here in this gap. So this is our first shell stitch. From here we're going to repeat that pattern, so we're going to skip our next 4 stitches, and in the gap between our 4th and our 5th stitch we're going to place 4 more double crochets. And we just want to repeat this pattern until we make it back to our first shell stitch. And when you make it around your row where you have your last 4 double crochets from your previous row, I want you to skip these last 4 double crochets and place your 4 double crochets between this last double crochet and the first double crochet from your first shell stitch here. And the pattern from here is going to be to skip your first shell stitch, which is these first 4 double crochets, and we're going to work 4 double crochets in each of our gaps between these shell stitches. And we're just going to allow our pattern to continue to spiral, and we want to repeat this for a total of 18 rows with our shell stitches, And I repeated my spiral shell pattern until I had a total of 19 rows of my shell stitch. And that does include this very first row where we were just separating our double crochets. So now we want to taper off our spiral by placing 4 single crochets in our next gap between our shell stitches. And from here, I want you to place a slip stitch in the top of your first double crochet from your next shell stitch here. And you might need to slide your stitches over to find that stitch. Sometimes they do get hidden. And we're just going to place a slip stitch right there. Then we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And we want to skip our little chain 1 and then slide our crochet hook up underneath our slip stitch. Then we want to grab one of our handles, and you can see this is where we joined our handle. So this is the side of our handle that we want to be working in, not the other side. And working in any of the stitches right here near your seam, we're going to slide our crochet hook up underneath one of our stitches. And we're just going to yarn over and drop all the loops on our crochet hook for a slip stitch. And then we're going to slide our crochet hook up underneath our next stitch on both our wine tote and our handle, and repeat that process of placing our joining slip stitch. And we're just going to repeat this until we have a total of 10 joining slip stitches. And when you make it to your little slip stitch on your handle, you don't need to work in that stitch. You can just work in the next stitch over. Once you've placed your 10 joining slip stitches, then we want to place 1 slip stitch in our next 6 stitches just on our wine tote. And once you have your 6 slip stitches in place, then we want to repeat our process of joining our other handle. Again, we want to place 10 joining slip stitches. Once you've joined your second handle, then we're just going to place 1 slip stitch in our next 6 stitches, and this should get us to the end of our row. And when you get to the end of your row, you're going to place a joining slip stitch in this first slip stitch. And I do apologize because it's going to be very, very tight. From here, we are going to cut and tie off our yarn. And I am just going to hide my tail down the inside of my wine tote. And so now you are done with your wine bottle tote, and it's time to slide your wine bottle in it. And don't forget to like and subscribe if this video helped you out, and if you're interested in more crochet patterns and tutorials. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.